Welcome, 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 everybody. I'm Joe Payne, as always, with J. Andrew World for another episode of Bad Takes. How you doing, Andy?
Hey, pretty good. How's it going?
It's going. I got this my rig thrown together really quick. I'm a little sweaty. It's a sweatier day here in California, where I'm at on the West Coast. But we are talking today about, and of course, your awesome artwork in the background there, Screamers, the 1995 sci-fi dystopian kind of. It's actually based off Cold War Philip K. Dick stuff, but let's first introduce our guests. We have Lorax of Left Flank Vets. Left Flank's Lorax is here. Lorax is an organizer in the San Diego area and a Navy veteran. After a fight with homelessness and addiction after getting out of the Navy, they became heavily involved in local and national politics. They were one of the key members of Veterans for Bernie Sanders in 2016, 2018, and 2020, and now a co-producer for Left Flank Veterans, found in early 2020 a Twitch stream podcast of 4 anti-capitalist leftist veterans. And Lorax's ideology aligns with anarcho-communism. So thanks for being here, Lorax. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited about this. Thanks for having me. Also, yes, we'll agree. It's a hot day in California.
All right.
California.
Yeah. And Andy, why don't you introduce our other esteemed guest for the panel, as it were?
Well, our other guest is Jeremy Johnson. He is the publisher of a couple of now I'm going to blank on it. I just remember Integral Books, right? Is it? I did the logo. I should know.
Yeah, Integral Imprint. Yeah, you did the logo. Thanks for that.
So sorry, I just got off a podcast talking about Parasite. So if I end up talking about basements for some reason, you know what's going on.
Well, we're talking about basements with this movie too. Andy's brain's a little scrambled, but go ahead with Jeremy can go ahead.
Jeremy's been a frequent guest on many a podcast, including the Michael Brooks Show, Give Them an Argument with Ben Burgess, and most importantly, his own podcast. He is always a featured guest on that. Mutations. I think that went smoothly.
Jeremy, give yourself a proper introduction.
No, I mean, Andy got it most of it right. I think Integral Imprint, I'm an author, I'm an editor. I've been on, many shows, and I'm the host of Mutations podcast. So it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. And Andy, why this film? Why Screamers? Let's dive into what is this movie really, and what's going on in this film.
First of all, this movie is always like if I ever feel cheeky and people are asking like, "What's your favorite Philip K. Dick movie?" I answer this one. Why it's the best? No, not really. I mean, obviously it's Blade Runner. I mean, or depending on my mood, Total Recall. Let's be fair here. Those are both two great films, but this one is has that great script from Dan O'Bannon, who is the screenwriter for Alien and Total Recall. So you have like the foundations of this movie is good. However, it's not a good movie at the same time. You have the great story, you have that. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up is it really is a great metaphor in a lot of ways, multi-layered about the war in Afghanistan. So I figured that would be a great lens to kind of look for it, which is part of the reason why I invited Lorax here. And Jeremy is, of course, a Philip K. Dick expert, which I left out in the introduction. Maybe not expert, but he's well-versed and knows quite a bit about integral theory, which I also left out. And I think bringing those skills to discuss robot wars in a bad sci-fi film is definitely worth bringing up, as well as, like I said, the bigger thing of endless war and war for resources, which is what this movie is about. Oh, am I supposed to talk more?
Well, if anybody wants to chime in, because like you said, this is based off this Philip K. Dick story, which really is more on the nose with the fact that this is a conflict between the Soviet Union or the UN, as it were, the West, or whatever idea you want to call it, and the Soviet Union. And this film kind of removes a bit of that. And again, this is 1995, but considering Afghanistan and with the dawn of a new nation today, as it were, what do y'all think, our guests, about? I mean, does this film? Do you think it's kind of on the nose with the Afghanistan, or do you think there it's a commentary on maybe not some of what Reagan was up to, or was that much in the psyche of whoever was up to making this film or adapting this Philip K. Dick story? Whoever wants to go first.
I mean, I would just say
I would defer to the Philip K. Dick expert here.
All right,
funny
let's hear
enough,
it.
I haven't read the book, the short story, the second variety from like 52 or 53. I'm familiar with the premise of it, and I knew it was behind this film just in terms of the adaptation. But I would say there's definitely elements probably of the Gulf War and interventionist wars that have probably filtered into or funneled into the creation of the film, just in terms of how the film was imagined and some of the subtext. But I don't know if anything has been explicit just in terms of like O'Bannon's writing and with the script, because I know it was sort of meant to be a version of Total Recall. Andy, you mentioned Dan O'Bannon, so maybe you could speak more to that element of it.
Right around the time he did Alien, if I remember correctly, he got he spent a bunch of money on buying the rights to various short stories, and he bought a couple from Philip K. Dick, if I remember correctly. And so he wrote this probably like late 70s, early 80s. So this is probably more about Vietnam. This is a big conjecture here. Based on the timeline. So I'm imagining that this probably in his head was a Vietnam War movie. However, if you do a movie well enough and you take enough outside of it, it becomes more universal. So, and when they did that with this film, it does become that larger that larger look at endless war, like how Vietnam was, how a lot of war is just sitting around in the base and waiting for something to happen. That boredom, that inertia of battle. I don't think that's quite the right phrase myself, but we'll go with it. Because I'm sure Lorax might have a better perspective on that. But also the whole the main thrust of the movie is that they realize that they're not that the war's not ending. They have to make the peace themselves. And I'm sure we did have another guest credited that was supposed to be here who actually was in Afghanistan and who could probably speak to this a little bit better than any of us can. But I imagine there was some of that actually going on in Afghanistan with like local warlords or local, regional powers and stuff like that with the local bases. And I imagine that's kind of also happened in Vietnam if I'm to if I read my history correctly, small things like that, where you do kind of find, it's these two big governments, but at the same time, you're just dealing with the local guy, and it doesn't really matter.
I see, and we're gonna watch the trailer here in a second. But Lorax, was there anything this film kind of does depict this kind of militarized techno dystopia on another planet? We'll get into the details, but like, were there things that you noticed that kind of rang true or reminded you of things from your time in the military?
So with when I went into this movie, I'm just going to preface it, I did think about Afghanistan. I was thinking a lot about U.S. conflict, not just Afghanistan, but this is kind of a story of we build something to fight the enemy, and then it becomes either against both sides or in the hands of the enemy, right? And this is where, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the plot later, but like how it evolves and how basically the alliance or whatever, the U.S. funded this to defend their mines. And it evolved into ending up killing everyone, and really evolving into its own mind. And I mean, if you want to go into the history of Afghanistan and the Soviet occupation and the millions dead there, and then the creation of the Mujahideen and eventually the Taliban spread out of that, the evolution of these groups. So yeah, I mean, it's not just Afghanistan too. It's Iraq. It's the evolution of ISIS. It's Contras in South America that led to dictatorships. I mean, it goes really far back. So I don't know what I definitely got some Alien vibes from it. So good writing, just poor directing, I think, a lot of ways. But yeah, it was it said a lot about the state of U.S. intervention, whether it's U.S. intervention or just imperialism in general.
To defend the director a little bit, he is he's a Canadian director. Right after this was kind of like was the stepping stone to do higher like bigger films. He did the Wesley Snipes film Art of War, if I remember correctly. His film right after this was with Donald Sutherland. So like, and I don't, I think a lot of it has to do with like budget and like what the studio is willing to give, which is it's a Canadian production. It's Canadian cast. But it's like TV Canadian. It's like, like in the hierarchy of acting, like TV Canadians at the bottom of the pyramid of it. Not to knock them as and I don't want to sound like I'm trashing these people, because like they're all good actors in the film. It's just Peter Weller's a movie star and the rest of the cast are not, and they're fine actors, and you don't need a movie star in every part either. There's a difference between like Peter Weller or Philip Seymour Hoffman, or even like Tom Cruise, who is not that good of an actor, but he's a movie star. There's this certain quality that they have that other people don't have. And there's just great actors that might not have that quality, but you always enjoy seeing. And that tends to be, like some of those smaller actors, like the cast of this movie, which I'm kind of, escaping.
I have to say,
she had a very unfortunate same name as somebody else, but.
After scouring through IMDb a little bit, like kind of while I was watching this movie earlier today, so I'm having a very fresh reaction. I noticed a lot of the actors, like you click on any one of these actors, and it was like just like a wormhole, or like a rabbit, warren of just tunneling into weird B movies, shows you never heard of. My favorite was, I think, the actor who did he does the voiceover, the narration at the front, like when he talks about the planet and all this stuff, and like he's just this random actor who was like here and there in these movies from the 60s into the 70s, you know what I mean? So it just very strange. But let's watch the trailer. What do y'all think? Just so folks know what we're talking about here, and just like kind of the vibes. I like this trailer because I don't know if they use that same narrator, but they have this kind of fun narration situation going on. If there's no audio, folks in the chat, please let us know. I'm sure we should be okay though. Let's try it out.
A world overlooked and long forgotten by those who settled it. For Commander Joseph A. Hendrickson, it is worse than hell. It is home.
What are they?
There is a new terror in their midst.
Call it a screamer. It was developed for us by Alliance on Earth to neutralize the war on the ground here.
How do you know it's dead?
And they yanked this brain out.
Pretty smart.
Maybe too smart. This one seems to have modified itself.
It was designed to protect them from their enemies until it turned its sights on them.
Are they alive?
No one knows. They make themselves now.
I heard the screaming, and then it got very quiet. Nothing except the smell of death.
Chuck, we got a new kind of screamer.
He was like a person.
What are they supposed to look like? Oh, you mean who are they supposed to look like?
They're smarter now. That's how they get into our bunkers.
Once it gets inside, that's when the killing starts.
Now, the only way to tell man
He's one of them.
from machine is by the sound of their scream.
Things ain't what they used to be.
Gotta say, man, I used to want to be a film editor, and when I realized trailer editing is a whole subgenre, that's a damn good trailer right there. That's an old school trailer, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I gotta say that the matte paintings in this movie are fantastic. Like, they're really good. They're some of the best I've seen, maybe from the '90s film. It just seems like an older style artistry that I wasn't expecting from like a mid '90s film. But yeah, gotta appreciate those too.
Yeah, no, it's got beautiful practical effects through a good chunk of the movie. So a few moments of bad CG, but they kept those at minimum. So like, I think I can count like 3 off the top of my head. Which is something, for the '90s. And I understand the sequel, which I've never seen. It's just like nothing but CG.
I gotta say, I mean, it was.
But the sequel's got.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Lorax.
No,
I
go
gotta
ahead,
say,
go
for
ahead.
'95, it was a fun film. Like, it was fun. Like, the effects were okay. I mean, they didn't feel too far away.
I was surprised at
No.
some of the shots and renderings, like when the spaceship takes off at the end. I was like, wow, because there were some shots that the CGI not so good, right?
Yeah, well, the screaming inside the bunker at the one point where the kid grows fangs.
Yeah,
That was
trying to see if there's any. I'm with Jeremy on the map paintings. Very impressed. This kind of depicts it a little bit, but
it just went the extra mile for like building that world. Just the ruined cityscapes or like the sunsets and like the skyscapes and everything. Despite the lower budget, I think it went a long way for immersing you. So, but you're right. There was some CG in there that was kind of bad. I'm thinking of one scene where that soldier got cut in half. The Screamer soldier, that was a little cringy. But those are few and far between.
But like, it's such a quick cut too.
Yeah.
So like, you don't, they don't dwell on it. So it's just like, whoa, that was kind of wonky. And then you're back to practical effects. So you're good.
Yeah, so the screamers, right? So these robots. I thought the screaming came from the blades, is what I was assuming, and then they were screaming at the end when they turned into humans. I had a lot of questions about how they got to where they got, but as far as what it was, as far as the evolution of a supposed ally that we know can kill you, and evolving into the '90s stuff. It's going through these pictures, it's just like Peter Weller. I will say, like, great. I liked his performance. It was great. I didn't understand the love story between him and Jennifer Rubin, but it
took RoboCop to teach this robot how to love. Sorry, that was bad. Her, right?
Yeah, Jennifer Rubin, not
to
be
Jennifer
confused with the awful neocon Washington Post.
You're not allowed to mention her on this show, Jeremy. Sorry, we don't talk about that Jennifer Rubin. But
we just want to make sure that people listening know which Jennifer Rubin we're talking about.
Of course. But that's a good point. Like, I think there were things that impressed me, and like, I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was in high school, or a film editor, and be involved in filmmaking. And there were several things about this that rang of like old adventure movies, like the fact that we don't even see Peter Weller's character until like, we've met all these other characters. Like, that's you'd see that in Old West movies too, right? Where like you don't really meet the hero. John Wayne doesn't come in until like maybe 15, 20 minutes in. Like, did anybody pick up and like the painted backdrops? Did anybody? That's a lot of sci-fi, as it's like westerns in space. But did anybody, Lorax, like, did you pick up on any Hollywood tropes or anything that piqued your interest as you were watching it?
I'm not as much of a cinephile as everyone probably here is. But
Andy is.
I mean, yeah, I actually did think that one of the main characters was going to be the couple of guys from the beginning. And I think there was
Me too.
One femme were like at the beginning, and we only saw one later in the movie. So I thought that was a really good like build up to meeting Peter Weller, and then surprisingly the one survivor from that crash. Also, just gotta say, there was like that crashed plane that crash landed in front of their bunker
Mm-hmm.
was on the way. And that's where the huge plot point, it's like, everything's been going on for, we're going to fight another war, and it's been going for 2 years. So they got this message, and that felt like a 2009 surge in Afghanistan moment, where it's like people on the ground. This is how I thought about it, right? So it's like, wow, people on the ground. It's like, oh, I thought, Obama was going to get elected in 2008 and end the war and send us home. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later after he gets elected, it's like, oh, my bad. We're actually sending 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan. And then, here we are 12 years later with the ending of it.
Well, and as we talked about a little bit ago, like the screamers, they're drones. Like it's in the opening where the guy says the greatest human, like whatever development, autonomous, weapons. And like Philip K. Dick saw this shit coming in the 50s. How do you guys feel about that? Like paired with, obviously the reality we're living in now and the brutality in Afghanistan, but across the Middle East now. It's just with impunity, the United States gets to use drone warfare on, whoever it chooses, it seems. Jeremy, you want to take that?
I was gonna default to Lorax maybe but I could sort of mention something in relation to that, just in the context of a lot of PKD's thematics in a lot of his stories. He's always exploring the relationship with the human and the machine. So there's a lot of similarities with, as far as I know, the short story when I was reading about it, and then the film, of course, as well, and the adaptation. Very similar to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in terms of playing with robots that kind of mimic humans, but maybe they can be somehow human-like, right? They can be personable because there's a love interest in this, right? Just like there is in Do Androids Dream and also in Blade Runner. So it's that kind of theme of like loving the machine, which is also something like a person, which is also the object of humanity's destruction, right? It's something that's run away from our control and ultimately overcomes or destroys our civilization. Like in the book or the short story, the setting is on Earth, and I think it is interesting, and it does bring up more of the contemporary war situations, like in Afghanistan, etc., because it's moved to some faraway planet that everyone's throwing resources to kind of hold on to one side or the other. In the short story, it's on Earth, and Earth has been destroyed by this war where these machines basically kill both sides. So there's a lot of those themes of runaway technology, dehumanization, depersonalization, and then the flip side of that, which is always the kind of Phil Dickian curiosity, which is, well, what does it even mean to be human? Like maybe we're more machine-like than we think. And so it kind of plays around with that, who's human, who's not, etc. So all those things are kind of floating around. And I think robots obviously were a very easy and popular trope during the 1950s and 60s in mid-century science fiction to explore those questions. But I think Phil Dick was definitely the most prescient in the way he wrote about it. And obviously, like, making a connection now with drones is like, it's completely thematically appropriate. It's like kind of latent in Phil Dick's writing to kind of run with that theme. So yeah.
And I would absolutely agree. I likened the screamers to the Taliban or the Mujahideen or whatever, but also could be drones, right? This is something that through the 80s and 90s we saw a lot, and we still see it today. AI taking over, killing you. We saw it with the remake of the Child's Play recently. And like, this is just a constant thing we're dealing with when we see those Boston Dynamics robots that are being trained, that are now police officers in like Singapore and China and soon New York, right? This is something that these machines, we are creating intelligence that I'm not gonna say it's out of this world that they become sentient or try to attack something that doesn't. We see it with AI right now with shit. Even like street cameras are racist because of the people who designed it. Decided to look at like people of color in a criminal way, opposed to like, white suburban person. So
predictive policing, all that shit.
So that's not out of this world where we create something that helps us, and those drones end up getting a mind of themselves and turning on us as well, and eventually taking over the whole area where we had them. So that, yeah, I could see that tie-in as well. I would just say, like, it's supposed to be like the miners, the union versus the corporate masters, which I didn't really see that tie-in, other than like, hey, this is actually US versus the Soviets at the time, right? And the 85 Cold War kind of thing.
I feel like they kind of tried to take the teeth out of that, and I wrote these things down, right? So what, this is like the 2070s, I believe, right? I could have got that wrong, but it's on this planet Sirius 6b. They're mining beryllium, right, which produces radiation while after it's mined that is like fatal to the workers. And they were all, what do they say? They were all working for the new economic bloc. And like that, some of the characters, before this war reference it, we were all NEB back then. And then the alliance, like, the union or whatever, is the workers and the scientists, the laborers, and they organize, or there's one scene where they're going, walking through, like they're getting to the city that's been bombed, right? And I really want to get y'all's perspective on the little boy once we get to that character, but he references how the alliance formed. It started out with like a strike, a work stoppage, and then and like almost like something out of early 1900s. They the NEB responds by bombing the workers. So it's weird, like taking it from Philip K. Dick's idea of a dystopian of what was going on right then, but then this reimagining, I think, is pretty creative. I don't know what y'all think about it.
Yeah, and then even the theme of this, or whatever they're mining, that being so destructive to the environment. There's also these ecological themes, right? We have runaway machines and technology. We have industrial innovations that are destructive for an environment, or destroy a people, or destroy a world, right? This is also something you see in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. The situation there is a kind of similar. Earth is this sort of hyper radioactive place where animals don't live anymore, and so everyone like trades status symbols of like having fake animals. Like if you've got an android dog and it looks really real, that's like a class symbol of you being able to afford something that looks like the real thing. Or if you have a real animal that's like almost extinct, that's a class symbol. So yeah, there's some interesting themes in there. Corporations, technology, ecology are showing up in this as well.
And also add on to that, I mean, this is, they all said, hey, we used to be NEB, right? And Joe makes a really good point, how they nuked these cities, these major cities, of striking workers. They're literally just bargaining for their life and their health and their money, right? And we see this, I mean, Battle of Blair Mountain, not so much like, death or shooting on striking workers, but we do still see like a police state against, like a Pinkerton type police state against striking workers, and like the coal mines in Alabama, and the striking Nabisco workers right now. But it also shows that this is how we create the enemy, right? We bomb, we kill families, we kill people, and then they end up becoming the terrorists. Like, we have only grown these terrorist factions over the last 40 years in the Middle Eastern region, especially Afghanistan. And so we're just creating more and more fighters against the United States. And so if we hadn't intervened, there's an argument that a lot of these factions would not have been around. If we had not trained Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, would the things that have happened in the Middle East in 9/11 had happened, right? So that's the argument where they bombed an entire city of workers and their families. Don't you think some of the survivors are going to be fighting you with tooth and nail and going into a hot war and then creating this machine to fight you? Well, that's kind of how that works, right? And I noticed that everyone was part of NEB, and NEB could have kept them if they had just negotiated safe working conditions.
Yeah, definitely. And there was also a moment, Andy, I want to know what you think about this. Like, in there's this opening scene where this guy is ripped apart by the screamers, right? And it's very like, they're trying to, and for me, I was like, this is a Tremors ripoff, everybody. Like, they're drone Tremors, okay? I grew up watching The first one, yes. The second one, not so much. And then I don't want to even recognize the rest as canon. But anyway, this guy's ripped apart.
Let's skip to the TV series.
Oh God, Andy, you have such a high tolerance for this shit.
I just watched the recent Tremors, the one that came out this last
honestly,
year.
There's a few. I missed that one, but
oh God, it's awful.
I missed the last two. but no, the TV series wasn't terrible.
Okay,
it wasn't good either.
But so they kill this character, and you see this guy get hacked up. It's brutal. And even like one of these bit characters who we think might be one of the main characters at the moment, like throws up. And then as soon as I was like about to put like a note down, like, this is weird. Like, are these the good guys? We're supposed to side with. This is how they're depicting like the workers. You know what I mean? And then in that moment, these two characters have this moment where they're like, we're supposed to be the good guys, or the blurry line or something like that. I mean, it's. What do you think about that, Andy? To me, it's just like this brutality of the technological weaponry, and I was glad the movie like sets that up right in the beginning. It's on the nose, of course, but
yeah, it is a bit on the nose, but like it really, it's. I quite enjoy that opening. You're right about it being kind of like a Western. It's.
Apologies here. This is good radio, Andy. Sorry, it's all right.
Is. I should be like
really quick. Everybody, Jay Andrew World has been on stream a good part of the day today, so it's understandable. You were doing another movie podcast. We started this one, then you got roped into even more movie podcasts. But I mean, just go try again, Andy. Try again. Try to get a handhold here.
No, I mean it's a great brutal way to be introduced to like what this movie is about. In a way, you have other characters giving us an exposition dump.
Yes.
Did I get that right? Yes.
I hope
so. Victory is mine. Anyways, but they did it in a way which actually kind of pushed the story forward, because no moment like the strength of the script is there's none of those like wasted scenes. You don't have every single piece of like exposition given in the film, every single piece of like dialogue really does kind of push the characters forward. Even like the empty character development at the beginning plays off really weirdly at the end, because they were talking about that bar at that one beach, and for some reason the screamer who took the guy's face knew about this conversation, which really brings up a lot of questions, like when did the screamers get into the base?
These two characters here, and I just have to say, this ship crash lands right in front of them, kills everybody except one on board, but the nuclear reactor is just sitting there without a scratch on it. That was one thing where I went, what? Huh?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that make you just go, what, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there was moments
probably from the rewrites.
There were moments that I'm looking back on right now. Just that picture. Remember when the screamers were pulling all the body parts down?
Yeah.
Like, they don't need to feed. What is this? They're robots, right? And so it's like, oh, they're making a droid. And then I just realized the guy who got the arms cut off was actually I think that was a screamer as well, to try to get them to leave the base, to kill anyone there, and then chaos, right? Yeah, that's my thought. I don't know if that's correct, but I think that's actually, because we saw later on that they were managed to produce blood, right, with the main character, Jennifer Rubin, keep saying her name, cut her hand, and that's when they end up having the romantic kiss, like, oh, I just cut your hand, now I'm gonna kiss you. But it's they managed to create blood, so that's you just cut it. never kink shame, you know, people are into that stuff, I guess. It was fun, but I just realized that they were pulling all the parts down so they could remake their droids, because they established they hadn't been down. They don't know what's been going on with the development of these screamers for 2 years, and they have no idea. And then they find out that there's this little dinosaur one, small like T-Rex looking thing, and then the humans, the little boy that they recreate. I don't know how you can recreate that face so many times, though. I was a little confused on that.
I love that stop animation, by the way. Like, there's just so many little things about this film that are very endearing, like the stop animation T-Rex creature.
Yeah.
Yes.
It reminds me of a few different creatures, but yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was impressed by, because you know this movie does go on, right? I mean, they keep going, and there's quite a lot of like the we talked about the pastel backgrounds, but they also have this like abundance of set pieces, which are like industrial factory, you know, and even like the ending with like, I think we saw it in the trailer where the guy falls into the laser beam above, like. I was a bit impressed, like because you get the sense that it's low budge, but then you see like they really put a lot of work into the set design, and even some things about, you know, the technology was goofy from our perspective, you know. But let's talk about the little boy, because
just really quickly on that point that you were just talking about. This is one of the strengths of the directors, really giving us a sense of scale. Because you see the large buildings on the paintings, and then you go in it, and inside he also creates that sense of scale. So, you know, it's not it's certainly something to kind of key into, which I'm glad you picked up, because I don't want to trash the director too much, because I think he did it. You know, I think part of the problems is the budget in the studio, that you know, some of the stuff that we see on screen, and with the limitations of technology.
Oh my God! Speaking of, look at his keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean, watching in 2021, knowing we're 57 years away from this inevitable war on Sirius 6B.
Oh God!
You know, it's like some of the things. It's like the binoculars at the beginning, who are clearly just on rollers. It's like every time you move it. It's silly, but it's, how are you supposed to guess the future? I mean, at this point, we were supposed to have flying cars, right? According to some 80s movies. So
there's also all of like the boomer like sayings are still there. You coming or just breathing hard? Are you coming or just breathing hard? Like there's all these old. I wrote some of them down because they made me laugh. One of them, I'm one of the many things I do, I'm also a piano tuner, and so he has a line earlier and he says, "You got a piano tied to your butt? Like, you know, get moving." I was like, "Oh, cool." So I'll be in the alliance to tune the pianos on Sirius 6B or whatever. So that's good. But there was another one. He said they could make a hologram out of a dog and pony show. So, like, to me, it was like, man, this is like a John Wayne movie. But they're just throwing in hologram, you know, radioactive or whatever. But let's talk about the kid, the little boy, because that shit really fucked with me. Because, you know, first of all, it's just the idea of this little boy that's a refugee from this war, right? And you know, is living in this burnt out building, and you know, there's suspicion right away. Like, how come, you know, they don't eat you? How come you know, how do you escape the screamers? And the little boy's kind of like, oh, I just hide, you know, everything's fine. But then later when they approach the NEB outpost or whatever, like, you see the character, we saw those crosshairs a couple minutes ago in the images, and you know, they're reading them, and you think they're going to shoot the soldier, but they just obliterate this little boy. You just watch this little boy get, you know, shot right in the chest. And for me, like, I just been looking at some of that New York Times piece about people in Afghanistan and how they feel about it and what they've been through and what has happened to their families. And that moment, of course, there's the twist that the little boy's a drone or a screamer, a robot. But that image of that little boy getting blown up, you know, shot up like that was like, because for a second I was like, holy shit, was he aiming at one of these guys and he hit the kid by accident? You don't know yet. I don't know what Lorax, what do you think about that?
Well, it was I noticed that when they were aiming, they did take, it looked like a temperature reading of some sort. It was like 575 for the humans, and then they aimed at the boy, and it was like 501 or something. Maybe they had, that was never really explained, but they did have some sort of reading in their scope that they developed to fight this thing. And knowing that they have these droids, right? And we later find out that the droid ends up killing one of the humans because it's like, oh, that's a droid, sowing discord within the group of survivors here. And yeah, I mean, it was when they shot the boy, I was like, oh shit. But also I did have suspicions, like how'd this boy survive for so many years in this rubble if there's no food, right? Obviously these, I don't even know how the people in the bunker survived if there's no food. I didn't know they were still bringing resources. And if they hadn't been brought resources and found out this Jefferson character telling them the war is going on somewhere else and they've basically given up on this planet, how are they even all surviving? That's where my like questions come in. No, I think something you said earlier, and I hate to bring it back to the hologram, but the hologram is something that happens in the military all the fucking time. You never get real information when you're on the ground. You just don't, or you're deployed. And this is just a reality. And their response to that hologram is exactly what everyone else would have, right? It's like you can say whatever the fuck you want until it happens. I don't know. There's no, you don't count your blessings until you're moored ship anchors, right?
Yeah, in that moment after the hologram, they get the hologram message. Weller goes on this rant. You know what I mean? And it like, to me, I was just like, "Whoa, shit, Afghanistan." What was your thoughts on that rant that he goes on? Just like, they left us here. The whole idea was to leave us out here forever. Like, what was your thoughts on that stuff?
That's a radicalization process for a lot of people on the ground. If I kind of wish Dick could have made it tonight. But, one of those processes is realizing things on the ground of like, this is just, what the fuck are we doing? Why am I shooting at families, kids? Like what is this, right? I'm sorry about that. My roommate just got home and my dog's freaking out.
No worries no worries.
No, that was my thought. Also, the anti-war rant when the Jefferson was like, oh, here's these nuclear missiles that we could use in our RPGs kind of thing. And it's like, no, we don't use that, right? We're better than that. The main character Weller had a very anti-war, written as an anti-war character, which I really appreciated, where it's just kind of like, get this shit over with, let's negotiate, let's end this and go fucking home, right? Let's get back to, in this case, San Francisco for him. But yeah, it's one of those things that really stood out as far as where they wanted to take this, is like, we've gone too far, we've developed this thing that is now killing us, and we just want to go home. And I feel like that's just a normal thing in the military. It's like, why the fuck are we here? We're 3,000 miles from my hometown. Are these even the enemies at this point? And then you develop, trauma from doing that for multiple years.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and there's this little moment here. They have these red cigarettes that like protect them from they're just one of the little side things in this whole thing. They have these red cigarettes that protect them from radiation. Jeremy, is this like a part of Philip K. Dick? It seems like a lot of time in his stories, there's a cost. There's always a cost to whatever the technology might be or whatever's going on. But then of course people find a way to adapt to it. What's your thoughts? I mean, you're the Philip K. Dick expert.
I know that keeps being repeated. I mean, yeah, I mean, so many of his stories have to do with the premise that technology is not necessarily an improvement on our lives. That's a new form of warfare or a new resource or a new, radioactivity, for instance, which comes up a lot of in his stories, has all of these blowbacks, right? So, okay, we're mining this material, but the material can kill us. So we have to smoke cigarettes, which also kill us, but they'll kill us less than the other stuff. And so there's all of these kind of like mutations, right? There's a kind of, one of the themes he has in a lot of his stories is sort of life in the gutter, or like life for the folks who actually have to run the machines of industry and progress. And it actually isn't the way those narratives are telling us, for the workers or for the folks who are in, the smaller positions or the laborers or or etc. So yeah, he's interested in life in the gutter, and how technology creates these gutters. It creates these wastelands or mutant zones. And I think this is a good example of that, actually, perfectly so. All right, smoke some cigarettes so you don't die from the worst toxin. So a lot of his stories tend to explore this theme of sort of becoming a mutant in order to survive the zones that technology creates for us.
Jesus.
Yeah.
You could bring that out to capitalism too.
Yeah, and I find it interesting, right? Like in the book or the short story, it's not the Soviets that invent these robots, it's the West, as it were, right? That ends up unleashing these forces that they destroy the Soviets, but then you destroy everybody else. So there's some interesting themes in here, and I don't know if I'd have to check the exegesis and maybe some of Phil Dick's like correspondence, but I don't know where he stood in terms of Marx and class and everything, but it certainly shows up, at least implicitly, in his stories, as we see.
Well, I just think of how capitalism kind of makes like monsters of us all, and I'm even, of course, Andy knows this well. I'm more of a Lord of the Rings fanatic. I have a Lord of the Rings tattoo, huge nerd. But like, there's this idea in Lord of the Rings that orcs used to be elves, right? But they were tortured over long periods of time. Some people make a very shallow look at it and go, oh, it's about race and it's racist or whatever. But really, like, there are moments where I see like those kind of characters as people twisted by tyranny, by that kind of, there's like scenes where orcs just kill each other because they just hate everything. They hate themselves. They hate everything sucks, and fucking sellouts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's funny that you mentioned Lord of the Rings. I'm hosting a class later this month with Becca Tarnas on Lord of the Rings. I'll send you that information off the podcast.
Get the fuck out. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. But that's interesting because Lord of the Rings also has a very ecological message, right? And I tend to read the orcs that way too, that they are sort of showing what happens to humanity when we become denatured, right? And I mean, literally, you see the imagery in the film, these orcs going down and pulling up all of the trees and creating the fires of industry, et cetera. And like, yeah, there is a sense of corruption, denaturing. And obviously, or I guess in the orcish case, it would be a de-elvenization rather than dehumanization. But I'll stop with that.
This is a science fiction. We're talking about a science fiction movie here.
Yeah. I'm going on a tangent here, but ecology, industry, technology, radioactivity, mutants, and the sort of the unintended consequences of technological innovation creating strange zones where it's difficult for things to live, right? And so what happens in those zones? How do we survive?
No, yeah, I think 100% would agree with that. I would also, and this is a little, when I overthink things and I think I'm overthinking.
Do it. Go for it.
You have the unions, right? The scientists and the unions who were all pro-labor here. We're all pro-union, I would assume. But the union members were bombed, and then they created technology.
There's 2 things about this show. The 2 things about the show to know is that we are pro-union and that we dedicate everything to the brave fighters of the Mujahideen.
Oh, whoa, buddy. Right there. This stream is going to
confirm or deny such accusations.
That's a Rambo reference, right?
No.
Andy.
The end of Rambo and Rambo 3 and A Living Daylights were 2 movies that were dedicated to the brave fighters of the Mujahideen. So,
that's right. I was just saying, with this IMDb photo and Lorax, I want more of your thoughts on this. This could be a great pro-union like poster. We could just turn this.
I love it.
I'm joining the union. But you were saying, sir.
Well, it becomes the dire straits, right? I think Jeremy hit on this, where this is a theme of just scarcity, of they don't have anything left. It's the last few radiation cigarettes they have. There's nothing, right? This plane lands. It's the first plane they've seen and not lands, crashes and kills everyone on board but Jefferson. We see this, but what are the workers supposed to do? They created this technology, but they created it from a U.S. on Earth, right? The Alliance technology on Earth to protect the Union members and the mines from the NEB who bombed the cities. So at what lengths do you have to go as a worker to really fight for your rights? Because at this point, they're creating technology that eventually turns on them. But this is how far capitalism goes, to a point where like they're going to bomb cities if people actually step up. Now, if that's a reality in the United States, I don't know, probably not. But will they send rows of police to arrest you and put you in jail and make you homeless? Yeah, probably.
Well, the way Elon Musk talks about what he has in mind for Mars, like, I don't know how much different it would really end up being.
It's going to be like a Total Recall,
or like this,
or just everyone dies on the way there. That's my idea. I don't think we're ever going to get to Mars before I die, but like maybe we'll get to Mars, but it's not going to be us. That's for sure. It's going to be people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Richard Branson or whatever the fuck his name is. The billionaire race to Mars. But yeah, this is really just like, at what point are they going to start shuttling working class people to mine the moon because they discovered some mineral? There's over $1 trillion worth of minerals in Afghanistan. We're not done with that place, right? Like, we're not out of it. And this is serious 6B. It's like, we're done, but we're going to hire some contractors to go in there and maybe work out some deals with the Taliban. And then in 15 years, we're going to have another war, depending on who takes the next presidency, because Republicans already want to go back in. So it's we're done with Serious 6B, but are we really done with Serious 6B? Because we've created ISIS-K, we've created the Taliban, we've created ISIS in Iraq, we've created, I don't know how many terrorist groups we created over time. It's probably more than counting two hands. So,
and they learned how to kill each other.
The robots, yeah, that was the weird thing that I think, and Jeremy, you were talking about this earlier. Like, that was possibly the hold on, really quick, I can skip ahead to just find the images, but that was probably one of the most Philip K. Dickian things that I recognized. Was we had this love story, where this one android character she decides to side with him, the human, right? And then they're two of the same whatever replica android of this woman fighting each other, and one is defending him. It reminds me a lot, we have Data in Star Trek. I really love Next Generation, and this idea of a machine wanting to be sentient. But at the same time, I look at this and I just see, like, we want to anthropomorphize everything. We want to humanize everything, including our creations, which, like, when we look at those DARPA dogs, or we look at drones, they're not our fucking friends, and they're not, you know what I mean? They're not gonna fall in love with us. People have made them for specific reasons, just like those screamers were made, and I guess, like, where does that come from? Like, how do you see it as a Philip K. Dick fan? Like, this fear of the machine, but then this love and need and almost a lust for the machine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a question I've been exploring lately. It really extends beyond Philip K. Dick, but this question of empathy for the machine is a big theme also in Do Androids Dream, and more so in the book. Like, empathy is a whole religion. It's this weird thing called mercerism, where essentially everyone kind of holds on to these. They look like e-meters from Scientology, and essentially you go into kind of like a VR head trip, and there's this guy Mercer who, like, sacrifices himself to fight entropy in the cosmos. I don't know. It's some weird visionary state. Everybody shares it together and has, like, a connection or empathy with each other. And one of the themes in the book is Deckard developing empathy for the machines that he's killing, the replicas that he's killing, or destroying. But then also experiencing them firsthand and going, like, are they capable of feeling empathy back towards me, or do they not have empathy? And a lot of the what shows up in that book, at least, is like, okay, they don't really have the same relationship to living things that I do. There's this particularly memorable and creepy scene where one of the androids is, like, picking apart the legs of a spider and watching it kind of try to crawl away and survive, and there's just no connection at all or empathy for this other organism. So there's a lot of reflection on empathy, and becoming more machine-like is not necessarily what we want to do. But as you're saying, yes, there's an enamoration, a profound compulsion to project ourselves into these machines, to project our ideals, right? That they're a way of transcendence. They're a mode of empowerment. I mean, this is something the philosopher Paul Virilio talks about all the time, that like the whole logic of modernity is this love of machines and speed, right? And so I often talk about like the motorcycle is this great kind of icon of techno modernity, in that we love things to go faster, we love innovation, we talked about this actually in the movie Extravaganza about what do you call it? I think we were talking about it in the context of Snow Crash, in the sense of Snowpiercer. Sorry, Snow Crash. Wow, it's late for me too. But the whole idea of this, like, not being able to slow down modernity and civilization as this machine, and how the futurists had this, the Italian futurists in the early 20th century had this adoration of the race car. There's like a fantastic poem where it's sort of like just completely enamored with the machine, the power, the sort of techno-vitalism, as Virilio calls it, of the machine world. And as moderns, we do have that. And it's this kind of self-destructive love affair with what technology can unleash, but we oscillate between total delight about these powers that we unleash into the world, and then on the other hand, complete haplessness to control those. So we're kind of oscillating between anxiety and delight in our own creations, a sort of Faustian bargain in a sense. But sorry, that may have been a lot, but that's what came to mind when you talk about how we just keep making these things. Come what may.
There's some scientists that out there would probably take a human life to protect their creation, right? And this is like the way I think about what you were just saying is like how we watch horror movies with zombies, right? Where there's every single zombie movie, there's always one person who's like, oh no, we don't want to kill this person because I have some semblance of them in the past, even though they're not who they are. It's like if an android became the love of your life. I'm thinking of a Fallout idea. I don't know if you've ever played the Fallout series video games, where these androids, there's this one side that wants to destroy all the androids, and there's this other side who wants to save them. But also there's this, as you as a player, it's like, I don't actually like the androids. I don't like the idea of this super sentient android intelligence that has the power to kill, that can short circuit at any moment. So at some point you have to sit back and go, these aren't our allies. In the beginning of the movie, back to the movie Screamers at the beginning, where it's like, oh, the cavalry has arrived, good thing they're on our side, was kind of a foreshadowing of the entire rest of the movie, where they actually weren't on your side the whole time. They were just trying to get you to leave your bunker and then, insert some android boy that can multiply 50 million times and kill the entire bunker. Because it just wants the planet. We've created a monster, That
was the other thing in this that tripped me out, was the isolation of everybody, which to me was like, oh shit, COVID. Our relationship to technology with COVID, where we're like, it's protecting us, but it's like destroying us in the fabric of society and like how we relate to each other on this fundamental level. Andy, if you could, I don't want to roast you. If you could string a thought together, Andy,
can I?
Just fucking with you. Oh man, I mean, what's your thoughts on just like the kind of isolation like that? That was the weird thing, that it did remind me of. There are some Wild West movies like that where they're holed up somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also reminds me, like I was saying earlier, a bit about just the weight of war. You see it a little bit, and oh geez, I skipped like most of the Iraq and Afghanistan war movies because I'm just like, not today, Satan. But what was that movie? Dead Presidents, for example. It was like the boredom on the base, and then they go out and they have the lucky severed head and whatnot, and that's where all the action happened. And then they go back to the base and they're bored for a long time, which is where Chris Tucker picks up the heroin problem. And they didn't really go into depth about the boredom of the base here, because they start off showing the game, which is one of the world's oldest board games, which the one being used on the set there, I read somewhere, is a replica of the oldest known game that's still played in Iraq today. And I don't recall the name of it. Maybe it's on the screen that I have in front of me. Whatever, it's not boring. But
well, the game is interesting to me because I was I get like many people, I deal with a little bit of addictive personality, and recently one of my things has been the Settlers of Catan. For some reason, it's this board game that's a lot of fun, and my brother-in-law and I like to play it, and he ended up getting a Star Trek Catan. And the other day I was reading this tweet thread by somebody who was talking about this game as like settler fantasy, right? Catan itself is about settling this island, and just doesn't really mention indigenous population. I mean, it's a game, obviously, but it's this like settler fantasy. And then within space, it's weird because Star Trek is supposed to be like, this kind of techno, I don't know, replicator communism or whatever you want to call it.
Wagon train in space too, like
yeah, and you're trying to like out space wagon train other people, right? The other sides, but this idea of like competition in space, the free market has worked so well here, right? It's done so much great for our crumbling planet that like competition in space, like what could go wrong?
I found what I was looking for, by the way. The board game is the game of Ur, a game from ancient Mesopotamia. The game still played in Iraq to this day. The board using appears to be a facsimile of the oldest surviving board discovered in the royal tomb of Ur.
Wow.
So just fun fact right there.
Got to give this movie a little more credit, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's the thing is that there's this really believable lived-in world set, is the acting spectacular in the movie? No. But like, are all the special effects fantastic? No. But like the bones of everything is really, like the foundation is there. They were able to build something on top of that because they had that foundation. They had a lived-in world that was believable, something that we could relate to. Which is what allows us to discuss it as metaphor for Afghanistan, or even, like I said, I'm thinking probably Dan O'Bannon was thinking Vietnam, because that was his generation. He grew up, he came to age in the 70s when he started working in Hollywood. Doing actually no, let me take that back. He started making films in the late 60s, so obviously he was there throughout the entire Vietnam era. And so I imagine, like, I don't know the whole process of the script because I know somebody else's name is credited, which means that there were rewrites. So I don't know how much of Dan O'Bannon's vision is actually in there, but the thing is, though, is this movie does have a solid foundation, a believable lived-in world. The characters are adequate. I mean, like they're what they need to be. Because really, Peter Weller's the only character that matters in this movie.
More than half of them end up being robots, right? At the so any bad acting can be written off.
Yeah, they were just bad droid actors. It's okay.
It's hard, man. It's like child actors. They're good ones hard to come by, I think.
Well, that's what they say. In Hollywood, don't work with children, animals, or robots.
Well,
and in this movie, we have children robots, so that's just 2 strikes there.
Yeah. And the animal robots.
2 out of 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the little T-Rex thing.
Yep.
And the rock thing.
Oh yeah, the rock thing.
Yeah, be a rock. Be a rock.
So they never established what was on Sirius B before the mining started, right? I don't know what kind of genocide happened on that planet, but it looks pretty habitable if, humans are walking around and it's just totally
Well, they described it as a paradise before the mining and before the war began.
Before the U.S. got a hold of it, right? It was probably
pretty much,
great.
yeah. And now it's a desolate wasteland.
All that's left is these weird bug things. Yeah.
What did Peter Weller say? Things are not what they used to be.
Yeah, he did say that, didn't he?
Yeah. There's a few. Well, first of all, around that time, I really loved that scene. I just laughed out loud. I cracked up when he took the VR glasses off the young soldier and stamped, and just that whole moment was hilarious. And I think it was very of the times to be kind of playing around with VR as the future. So I just got a big kick out of that and his reaction. But
he talked shit about
predicted VR porn.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
That's
solid.
true.
I mean, that in a lot of movies where there's like full on VR porn. So I don't know. It's pretty rad.
Well, and
this is before the 6th Day, which had that too.
Oh, that's right. That's a very Phil Dickian.
It is,
isn't it? Isn't that kind of? I mean, I don't think it is.
It isn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it just seems like they built it in a similar world.
Yeah. The lived-inness of that film, this film, a lot of PKD's adaptations just have that lived-in quality because that was just the way his writing style, right? Like he was very interested in worlds that had a life to them, like not just To Andre's Dream. I'm thinking of like even Man in the High Castle. Which he went so far in that and Do Andre's Dream. He went so far as to really develop like this kind of informal economics that's unique to that world. So in Android's Dream, it has to do with like owning a fake animal as a sort of class symbol. But then in Man in the High Castle, it ends up being this sort of question of, again, real and fake. Like, is this animal real and fake? And in the High Castle, it's all about Civil War era replicas of weapons and armor or whatever owned by the Union. Like Japan colonizes half the United States, wins the World War II, and they just fetishize. They love like 1800s Wild West stuff, right? They're like, oh, this is a real 1856 replica of this pistol owned by this general. And like, but like the whole idea is like to create fakes that are so believable that you can't tell the difference anymore. And I think that the fake and real theme also shows up in this, obviously, with people, right? Things are not what they seem to be. Is this a rock or is this a robot or a bug? Is this a person or is this, so it's that same theme of real and fake. Even at the beginning, I thought they were going to do this right at the beginning when they introduced Weller's character. He's playing with that coin. He's like investing, checking it out. And I thought they were going to go there with like, I'm just making sure these are real or fake. And I thought they were going to go with that whole theme in this film as well, but they didn't quite do it. But yeah, that's
a golden opportunity for sure. I feel like that's what they could have done for sure, is push that a little bit more. But I mean, it worked. They did it a little later with that one character, the one with the glasses. Kind of only in a few scenes, but he was clearly the coward and had tics and was a little, not PTSD. All that. Like as far, some PTSD stuff going on, some mental health things that needed to be addressed. But like his tics ended up getting him killed. Granted, he was killed by an android but kept saying, get off my back, hey, knock it off, stop making fun of me, like I'm just trying to vibe here. And he ends up getting killed. That was kind of where what you were talking about really stood out, was just what is real and what is fake. Was that rock an android? No, it was just a bug. Or like it started really hitting that hard a little bit.
But was he an android at that point too? Like that's one of the things I've always kind of questioned. You read the movie both ways, actually, that he wasn't, because until they dropped the nuke and knocked everybody unconscious, because apparently that's what nukes do in this movie, is just like throws you over a hill and knocks you unconscious for a day. Was enough time to replace him with a wounded soldier model. Which also kind of brings up like when was Peter Weller's second in command replaced, because they hinted that in the dialogue that he took the face and it was the same robot that he fought earlier that killed was it Jefferson? Shut up. Now, if you take a frog and put it in a microwave, Jefferson, yeah.
Goofy comic relief character.
Good, good character. I liked his character a lot.
He's still a character actor. I mean, like he's probably the only one that's really had a career after this. He was on Caroline in the City at the time as the obnoxious delivery boy on rollerblades.
Moving on up.
Like, skate in and just be like, "Hey, I got," just do physical humor. And whenever I saw him in this movie for the first time I saw it, I just remember rolling my eyes, going, "No, not him! I hate him." But like he actually is a great character, and he's if you look on his IMDb page, he's done like lots of different TV shows and like actually like network shows as opposed to like obscure Canadian television. So that there's that.
Well, if they were able to figure out that the boy was like a robot with the scope, why wouldn't they just do that with everyone? It was a very Thing-esque feeling of we don't know who is who in this, and I liked that actually. I really liked the vibe it gave, like that dystopian, we don't fucking know who is who and who's gonna kill, the next person's gonna die kind of thing, or who's gonna survive, or who's even an android. At the end, I think there was a little play with the bear being a fucking android.
Spoiler alert, bro.
Sorry, spoiler alert. But this was made in 95. If you came here and didn't expect spoiler alerts, like we're talking about it, right?
This whole damn show is a spoiler alert, or is a spoiler. But yeah, that was because of course I like looked up, I just looked up the plot of the Philip K. Dick, right, and story, and in that the woman. He doesn't find out she's an android until, am I remembering this right, Jeremy? I didn't read it. But that he doesn't find out she's an android till they're already like en route to the moon base or somewhere else or some other thing like that, right?
That's right. Yeah. I think the implication is that humanity might be doomed because of that or something along those lines. Yeah.
It seems like they injected more Philip K. Dick into this story by having this robot fall in love with him, fight for him. But then, the plot twist ends up being this innocuous even the little innocuous teddy bear is dangerous. Which, how did it even get in the ship? Did he take it in there? That I missed. I don't know.
I think the evil version of her.
Okay. Did she put it in there, you think?
I'm assuming so, but I don't know for a fact.
I don't remember.
It's just very infatuated
because you never see her do it.
That's right.
He was the main character was definitely Weller's character was definitely like playing with the bear in the cave before. So maybe he had just the bear on him in the back. It was kind of
maybe he did.
I don't know. He seemed pretty infatuated with the teddy bear in the.
But also, if it was a robot, wouldn't he have felt it inside the controls?
I mean, the way those screamers advanced, you were talking about how fast did it take to replace these people? Who knows? I mean, they were pulling things down from the dirt and sending it right back up. Is like we never got a real peek into the factory that these robots have created for 2 years, but clearly it's very evolved.
That's what I was waiting for, was them for them to go down into the heart of the belly of the beast. I guess we have Matrix Revolutions or whatever too, which they've announced there's going to be or the new trailer is coming out Thursday for today, Matrix 4,
or they teased it or something.
They teased it's coming out Thursday, the full trailer.
Okay.
But
oh boy,
yeah, more techno dystopia. Anybody had enough?
No, never enough techno dystopia.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is easier to see the end of the world than it is to see the end of capitalism.
Where have you heard that before?
I don't know. I think I was fishing for a mark and came up with it.
Nice. Oh God.
Yeah. The 3-hour mark. These are the jokes you get, people.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of that book right now. I'm in the middle of a lot of books, but I was cracking it a little bit today. And Children of Men has been one of my favorite, and Cuarón is one of my favorite directors like ever. But I remember watching that movie and being really unsettled because I was pretty young when it came out, or I can't remember what year it came out, but I was old enough to be like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like and then V for Vendetta was like around the same time. You know what I mean? So like people have seen this, like this right wing, whatever you want to call it, coming down for quite a while. Is like is there much of that in this? Is there much of that in this film? Like, are we seeing? Is it trying to be a little like non-ideological, but just like kind of anti-war? What do you guys think of that?
I mean, I kind of get the zeitgeist of the '90s. I don't know if how many people were like, I was a teenager coming to age. I was a senior in high school whenever this movie came out, and there was a lot of this kind of like no labels kind of zeitgeist that I think was captured somewhat in the Naomi Klein book. How it is, like there's a zeitgeist in the air, and then somebody finally kind of puts it on on paper, and she was kind of the first as far as I know. I could be wrong by that, but that's the one that people seem to have latched onto anyways. But there was if you look back, like other movies that came out around the same time, Johnny Mnemonic was very anti-corporation. You can argue RoboCop kind of was the start of the whole thing.
And our hero is RoboCop.
Yeah. And you can see that, and obviously 6 Day. I'm sorry, I can't think of any other.
It's all right. Can Jeremy or Lorax, are there like, do you feel the '90s in this movie? Like what?
Hackers. Good call.
Hackers.
Yeah, Hackers. Yeah. No, I definitely feel the '90s in this. I mean, again, especially because of that little VR headset, that sort of '90s imagination of what virtual reality could be, all of the fantastical erotic fantasies, etc. Certainly that.
It was kind of a psychedelic '60s, VR porn, I guess.
Yeah.
I also love the room with the shades that the one dude wore. My college roommate had the same shades.
Also, the pop music. I don't know, playing pop music from 1995 to like show in 1978, which is weird. But this movie honestly could have been made in like 1988 versus 1995, and it would have been very similar to me, whether it's CGI or not. Or I think this was kind of early on. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but early on in the whole CGI thing, a little still trying to perfect it, trying to get better at it. And this had its few moments, but it still looked good for the 90s. And like, even if it had been made in 85, I think the message would have been very similar.
Yeah. That guy, when he first arrived on the guy with the shades there, I thought he was, what's the name of that fantastic Irish actor? Who's in Next Gen and Deep Space. I don't hate you, Cardassian. Cole Meany. I don't hate you, Cardassian. I hate what you made me become. I thought it was him.
I always just called him Kurt Russell.
He just had his look like right in the beginning when you first meet him. I'm like, is that Cole Meany with a mohawk look or like longer hair? But then he takes his shades off. You're like, that's who knows who that is,
No, I want to be Kurt Russell.
I thought he was fun. I thought his character was fun. It added a new dynamic of like the internal antagonist, but also you have to work with this guy to be able to get out. I didn't understand the teardrops. I think I saw it later on in the movie on someone else, but I wasn't sure. And I kind of wish that was explained. Just being honest. Like, I'd never understood why I had the teardrops. Did I miss it? Did they ever explain that?
No. But it did end up on that other character. You're right.
Yeah, it was on another character at the end, and I was like, "It's okay.
Because
all right, you have to explain this." Yeah,
that's really it.
Huh? Was that the hint that he was a robot the whole time? Is these teardrop tattoos here?
That's my assumption. Because it did show up in the other guy, but that was after supposedly he took the face of him. That's supposed to be the face of the commander that made peace. This guy right here.
Yeah, but he also has the teardrop, so it's like, whoa.
When you go to robot prison, you get 2 teardrops opposed to just 1.
It's when you shank 2 people, though.
Yeah.
Or it's like that Johnny Depp movie, Crybaby, right? It could be it's an homage or a reference. Okay, sorry to inject something totally a non sequitur into this, but just out of last night, we got to the end of like that heavy ass Netflix documentary about 9/11 and the war in Afghanistan. Have any of you guys watched that at all?
No,
No.
not yet.
I'm just not going to. I'm gonna avoid that one.
Totally understand. It's interesting because there's a lot about it that you could be upset with and angry about. They give a lot of voice to the blob, the NatSec blob, but they're also talking to Bush's council and all these people who are involved in this really heavy shit that went down before, during, and after 9/11 and the wars. But they also have critics in there, and so it's not god awful terrible, but there's some good stuff. But my wife reprimanded me for yelling at the TV. There's a moment with H.R. McMaster, and he starts going, "Where are all the humanitarians?" as we're pulling out. And I was just like, I'm the guy who yells at the TV now. I'm 32 years old, but so to put something on, just that was totally like cotton candy fluff. The Nutty Professor just came up in my algorithm, so I put on the Nutty Professor just to feel, as a fat dude, it's interesting watching that and realizing the things that I saw this when I was a little kid. But that movie is also full of references to other movies, right? And I feel like this film has some Star Wars vibes, right? Especially the campment and the desert feel. But is this movie do you guys find any reference in this movie? Is it self-referential, or is it like a very much this kind of enveloped Philip K. Dick world there, or that kind of is part of his greater universe? What do you guys see other stuff in this film?
I think it's more pastiche, not actually taking anything directly, but just borrowing from other works. Like you described the opening of not introducing the main character until 15 minutes into the movie, like a Western. And I mean, you're going to probably get the inevitable comparisons to Star Wars whenever you're on a barren wasteland, even though this is nuclear winter, I'm assuming, from all the snow. Also Canada. But there's some it doesn't feel like they're just like sampling, I guess, is probably a good description of lifting these ideas to build that lived-in universe. I would say Star Wars and Outland would be two examples of wholly original lived-in, and even Alien, wholly original lived-in worlds, whereas this one just seems to kind of borrow from probably better films. I'm not gonna. I love this movie, but I'm also not gonna pretend it's the best film ever made.
Yeah, I don't know if it really did anything that original. I mean, I feel like this is just, where was the Nostromo going to mine, right? In Alien. Maybe this is just what they envisioned as post-Alien. You get there, and then you're mining for multiple years, and then you're fighting against I don't know. It's this whole idea. I don't think it did much original, but looking back at it today and referencing Afghanistan is something that we could absolutely do. And I think that's why it's important to talk about it, because this isn't just Afghanistan. This is, as I said, this is almost every U.S. imperialist conflict that we've done. Is we create the monsters that end up fighting us anyways, And this is what they did. They created the monster that ended up killing all of them anyways. So to defend their resources, beryllium.
Well, and the idea of resource extraction and colonization at the same time. I mean, how many of us are in California? Is it just Lorax and I, Jeremy? Are you in California?
I'm in Florida.
Oh, Florida.
Yeah, we got an East Coast, West Coast thing going on, right?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I should put us on. Hold on a second. Okay, there. Now we're on different sides. Or you guys, we should be on the left. You should be on the right. Whatever. But I mean, we're Californians, Lorax and I, and that's the legacy of this state. Very much is colonization, resource extraction. I'm within driving distance of missions, which. Enslaved indigenous people and, forced them to produce food and all other kinds of goods, but also the gold rush at the same time and the conflicts, the ethnic conflicts it created.
The hyper-capitalism, you could talk about Prop 22. We could talk about the wealth and income inequality in California. We could talk about how California has a higher poverty rate than a lot of states in this country. that no one really realizes because they see California as like beautiful weather, beautiful people. This is, people live here. It's super expensive, sure, but the only people who are actually surviving are the people with money. And so if you don't have it, you are pretty much, you make less than like $130,000 a year, you're not affording a 2-bedroom apartment. Just simple as that. And it sucks. But yeah, I think it's a really good point with California. It's like it is California itself is this dystopian reality of it's liberal, but it's not. Like they'll still go after unions, they'll still protect their capital interests, and that's what this movie did. They were protecting their capital interests. The miners were trying to protect their lives, while the corporations started this conglomerate NEM corporation group that ended up having private militias of themselves fighting the workers, and it became a hot war. Here we are, and I could see, I don't know if that's ever going to happen in the U.S., but not in our lifetime.
I think too, it's not just liberals; it's capital L liberals.
Yes.
It's a with trademark at the end of it. It's a very particular brand of things. It's not. We're not talking about. Liberals and leftists are the same thing. No, we're talking about like a whole different type of idea of the way people are, way they approach things, and maybe the 5% that we overlap with the capital L liberal trademark, copyright 2021, that we agree with it, it makes sense, but then, but we disagree with the 90% that the capital L liberals, agree with the Republicans that they don't talk about.
And they are the NEM essentially. And instead of screamers, we just make streamers. Am I right? Because that's
hi-yo.
We're just gonna turn on all of you. Give us money so we can turn on you and completely
have autonomous streamers happening.
Turn on each other as well.
Just be like that guy.
The world is run by streamers.
We'll have like sentient balloon guys.
Oh God. Yeah, this is
California.
Now with bisexual lighting.
Oh no. Jeremy, thoughts?
Good movie, I gotta say. I mean, I know it was supposed to be bad takes, but it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. At least the first 45 minutes, I was really enjoying myself on this rewatch. And again, Peter Weller, we have to make him into some kind of like, how they have socialist Sopranos? I feel like his character in this would be so good as a meme somehow. And I'll leave it up to maybe somebody listening to work on that. But
I already came up with the pro-union thumbs up, so that's a free
there
one.
There you go. That's one. That's our first.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. And then you realize he's in so damn much. Like the guy, Jesus, he never stopped working. And then you just forget that's who, every time he pops up somewhere with an episode of House or, whatever other random thing, there he is. But, I grew up with RoboCop. I'm one of the kids whose dad let see RoboCop way too young, and
he's old in the theater.
Yeah. And then I think that, and that I also got that vibe right in the beginning, like not just Tremors, but RoboCop when the dude gets chopped up by the screamer, is like, oh, this is a gritty techno, dystopia. And it did kind of course he's RoboCop, but it did kind of feel along those same lines. And it was fun. I give it and that's the thing about Andy. He keeps picking these movies that are good, bad movies, right? That's kind of the funny thing about Bad Takes is, he finds these movies that have just been completely memory holed. And it's not because they're bad, but it's just because they weren't fantastic or they weren't great. But then you dig into them and like, wow, there's kind of some fertile soil here. Well, especially with Philip K. Dick, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, this one's a little bit of an, stands out why when I feel cheeky, I say it's my favorite Philip K. Dick movie. It actually is a solidly good film. Not perfect, and I don't want to give any illusions to anybody who hasn't seen it. This is an absolutely no. It's not a perfect film. It's got its problems, but it somehow is a better film than it should be. And I think a lot of it does actually lay on Peter Weller and his great performance.
Yeah, he definitely carries it. And I was thinking too, like, what else is 90s about the film? And we were talking about, the sort of corporate overlord evils with the robots. But, I was even thinking Aliens had the same thing. Like the villain in Aliens is like a corporate lawyer dude, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That wants to save the colony to get the alien. I mean, spoiler alert, but he's kind of the bad guy ultimately, even above and beyond the Queen in Aliens because of what he and the company want to do. So like, yeah, there is like that's sort of a pastiche from 80s science fiction, and I think it bleeds into the 90s as well. This sort of like corporations kind of suck. They're kind of bad. They're going to do amoral or evil things to make a profit. Or they will unleash things that will create problems like in Screamers. So yeah, I would definitely find that to be a very 80s/90s science fiction era.
I'm glad you brought up Alien again, because this was their main poster for Screamers, and man, does it look a lot like
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's such an Alien vibe. They really knew what they were doing with trying to get that alien crowd in
totally
there.
did.
Well, again,
sure.
it's Dan O'Bannon, so it's the screenwriter of Alien.
Well, there you go.
He honestly, like if he writes a movie, it's probably worth watching. Although I haven't seen Bleeders, so don't take my word on every single thing. I will punish myself at some point and watch Bleeders.
All right.
Or Hemoglobin, depending on like.
Oh man.
But usually though, Dan O'Bannon scripts are like a mark that the movie's going to be pretty good. I mean, they're not all masterpieces, but like Total Recall, there's nothing wrong with with the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Total Recall. It's
really no. Just get your ass to Mars.
I mean, it is what it is. It's that's what makes it great. But then you also have everything that makes Philip K. Dick great in there, and everything that makes Arnold Schwarzenegger movies great. You think I was real? Yeah. You're right.
We all have our Arnold impressions.
There are elements to Philip K. Dick stories that are readily appropriate for a not too great but not too terrible film, in the sense that they are kind of schlocky and how to put it exactly, the worlds he builds are believable and lived in, but they're kind of cardboardy and over the top, and the characters are a little ham-fisted in their motivations, and there's a kind of schlockiness to especially his earlier pulp writing, and it somehow just adapts really well to something like Total Recall or to Screamers.
Well, it's pulpy. It's like the old just the old science fiction adventure movies or comic books, even back in the old days. I think of Spaceman Spiff from Calvin and Hobbes. But any last thoughts, gentlemen, on Screamers, the 1995 film starring Peter Weller and friends?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think my favorite quote, just to say it, was it's a sword, Jefferson. Take a look. They call it a screamer. It was developed for us by an alliance on Earth to neutralize the war on the ground here. Kind of summarizes exactly what we do. But also, when we talk about robots, stop fucking trusting robots, y'all. Don't fall in love with them. Don't trust them. Have you seen They Live? If you haven't, watch it. Learn about robots. Or I guess they were aliens in that, but they were fucking robots. Let's be real. They looked like robots. Just stop trusting anything that looks like a robot, and then shut down Boston Dynamics if you get a chance.
That's interesting. Jeremy,
I'm just wondering how long we're gonna have to wait for a remake.
Well, there was a sequel.
That's true.
Yeah,
a remake of this would be fun. I think they could make it better. I think that if it's a little bit more touch, a little bit more budget, they could take the story with the approval from the original people, but also could make it a little better.
Well, Dan O'Bannon passed away in 2009, I think it was. So he's no longer with us. Although if like the John Carpenter people, is he still around? I can't remember.
Did John Carpenter die? Is that what you're
John
asking?
Carpenter is around.
Okay. Maybe not necessarily him, but a production team that he kind of leads or like he produces the film. I think could be kind of interesting because he and Dan O'Bannon did a lot of films together. Dan O'Bannon worked special effects for Dark Star, and where they became friends. And I know they did another movie together, which I am not recalling, but that's okay. I don't have Dan O'Bannon's biography memorized or anything like that. I just know that that's a name you always want to look for something that's at least somewhat good. Yeah. And he's also script doctored stuff too. Like I think he was on set to do a little script doctoring for Blade Runner.
Well, if they do a remake, they're going to have Peter Weller in there as the wizened old whatever, character. He doesn't have to be the main. He could have a bit part. You got to do that where you have the guy from the original in there as an old guy. You know what I'm saying?
He could be the hologram, the fake hologram that comes in, right? And yeah,
that dude was in Empire. That guy was in Empire Strikes Back. I was like, oh, okay, character
also,
actor.
I know it was mentioned once, but climate change. I mean, it was kind of a strong message about climate change on Earth, where we had to go by 2078, eventually fix the planet. So in 95, I mean, back to the 70s, we knew this shit existed. It's just a matter of corporations not willing to protect people. So yeah, fun movie. I'm glad you told me about it because I had no idea it even existed until like last week. So
that's the great thing about Bad Takes is we're watching movies you, like I said, have been totally memory hold, maybe sometimes for good reason, but other times not so much. But I want to thank y'all for being here. Where can folks find each of you, Lorax? You're also you're one of the several co-hosts of Left Flank Vets, right?
Yeah, so you can find Left Flank Vets, leftflankvets.org. It's on the flag, but also that has all our links to everything. But also, just Left Flank Vets on Twitter at Left Flank Vets, and then I'm Lorax of the Left. You can just find me on Twitter as well. You can follow me. It's not that great, but you can follow me either way. I'm okay on Twitter. I use it as a angry yell into the void diary sometimes.
Don't we all? Yeah. Don't we all? Mr. Johnson, Jeremy.
Yeah, you could just find me on Twitter. JDJ_writes is my handle on there. And I guess a go-to place would be mutations.blog. So there's a link to my podcast on there and Patreon and some of my writing. And there's also a link to my newsletter on there too. It's easier than sharing the Substack. But I post there infrequently, but hopefully that'll be changing this fall as new books and new writing starts ramping up. So yeah.
Very cool. And Andy, you're just busy. You're in competition to be busier than I.
Yeah, I have a bunch of projects I'm working on that I can't say anything about because they're not announced yet. So stay tuned. Some of the projects are announced. Just my part of it isn't. But yeah, stay tuned. I got big things in the works. I'm really happy with some of the stuff I've been doing, but definitely check me out on Twitter, Instagram. I post pictures that I draw, and soon you will hear more about my mysterious news.
Thanks, Andy. And I'm Joe Payne. I have my show Political Payne. Y'all can check that out. I do that usually Friday nights. I may be changing the times I do that, but you can follow me on Twitter and all those other places. I'm an independent journalist, but I do love films, and Andy roped me in, man, with Bad Takes, and we're having a great time. But y'all don't go, because I'm just going to cut all of our videos and the last, I'm going to give maybe a nice 30 seconds or a minute just to the beautiful art that J. Andrew World created.
And let's plug next episode.
Oh, well, Andy, please.
Next episode is going to be a big one. I know a lot of people are excited about it as soon as I tell them that it's happening. But we're going to have Milton Alamati and Cuba, Deep State Cuba from This Is Revolution. Cuba Winoski, I believe is how you pronounce his name, and his girlfriend Summer Tan to discuss the movie Wolf Warrior 2. So we're going to go in deep a bit about China and imperialism and all that good stuff. So it'll be much like today's conversation, but about a different movie in a different continent.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
Always. There's always.
But yeah, I'm really excited to talk to Milton about this because I told him about this and he's just like, I'm always up to talk about China's involvement in Africa. Great.
Yeah, and that's the movie. What's it called again? Wolf Warrior.
Wolf Warrior 2.
Wolf Warrior 2. Sorry.
Very, just make sure you're not watching the wrong one. Wolf Warrior 1 is a very jingoistic Chinese film it's fine. It's enjoyable. It's nothing special. Wolf Warrior 2 takes it up a notch and is a better movie all around. Frank Grillo plays the bad guy in it, who is always a lot of fun. It's a tighter script, but it's also a way more problematic. This is definitely enjoyable. I mean, like the first the first like half hour of the movie is just nonstop action and then drinking.
All right.
So you're not going to be disappointed by this. It's a fun, wild ride, and we get to learn a little bit about stuff with people who know about China and Africa.
Of course, yeah, that's going to be a good one. I'm very excited for that.
When does that air? Just curious. Sorry.
We
Or when
don't
are you
have a
doing that?
date yet,
Oh, okay.
but it's going to be end of the month,
date to be
early next
determined.
month.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be watching.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you to our guests once again. Lorax, left flank Lorax, of course, or Lorax of the left on Twitter. Jeremy Johnson, involved on the Michael Brooks Legacy Project Patreon, of course. Great to see him there, and thank you both for coming on to Bad Takes. We'll have you back, of course. Who knows what crazy movie? I mean, Andy has like a list of hundreds of movies at this point, so we'll have your pick. But I'm gonna cut all our video feeds and let everybody just enjoy the artwork Andy created to kind of cap out the show. So thanks again, guys, and left is best. Have a good night.
Peace out.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Andy. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.